This is the Comics Gazette. Now, here's your host, Connor Murphy.
This week I have two great stand-up comedians. The first one is Paul Marsh, a man from South Tipperary that now gigs all over Dublin on a regular basis. He's part of the Dublin Fire Brigade as well as being a stand-up, so I talk about that with him and his process of writing jokes. I'm also going to be talking to Robert Kelly, a New York-based comedian who grew up in Boston and is now starring in two shows on FX, Louis and Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. And he has an amazing new stand-up special, so I get to talk about that with him as well.
There's an example there, a girl screaming. Like in comedy, that's good. Firefighting, that's bad. Clearing everybody out of the building. Firefighting, that's good. Comedy, that's bad. Leaving people begging for more. Comedy, good. Firefighting, bad. Taking out your big hose and spraying it everywhere. Firefighting, good. Comedy, we'll see how my finale goes. And I'm only joking, I don't have a big hose. No, I don't, honestly. I have a nickname for my penis. I call it Life, because it's too short. And it gets hard when you least expect it. But my father once told me, he said, son, marriage sucks the life out of you. So I got married anyway.
Alright, so I'm standing here on the steps of the International Bar. It's a pretty cosy spot, and a great comic is standing next to me, Mr. Paul Marsh. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey Connor, how's it going? Thanks for having me, by the way.
Sure, look, we could have more ideal circumstances.
I know, yeah, we've been around all trying to find a quiet spot around here is unreal. The Inter is jammers tonight, so I'm looking forward to it. There's a load of tourists in, so should make for a good show. Sorry.
And how regularly, this is a place where I hear a lot of people, of course it's the International Bar here in Dublin, and I hear a lot of people talk about it and I hear a lot of things around it, but Dublin, it's a weird place because I think there's a lot of clubs that people are drawn more to. And what about yourself, personal preference-wise?
Well, as far as the Inter is concerned, this is like the home of comedy. We say back in the 90s, the early 90s, there was Mr. Trellis, there were three comedians, Barry Murphy, Kevin Gildea and Ardal O'Hanlon, and they started, they were going to college together, and they started, this was their first comedy club. This was the first comedy club. I actually did this when I was 19. I did an open spot here, and I died on my arse, and so 20 years later I came back, and now I'm doing it, but comedy is different now, but this was the home, and always stayed the home, even though other clubs might have been, say, bigger, or they might have a nicer room or whatever. This will always be the home of comedy. And even if someone, say, is visiting, they have to play. Like John Bishop was here recently. Any big names that come play the Tree Arena and then come up here and do 15 minutes, it's brilliant, So, yeah, it's a great venue. I mean, but I think I was saying to you earlier on, the only part of it I don't like is you have no microphone and it's hard to kind of know what to do with your hands. But other than that, that's the only bad thing I can say about here. It's a great spot.
Yeah, no, that is a strange thing. But as well, I mean, you're an interesting guy because, like me, I'm from Wicklow Town, not known for maybe its strong stance on stand-ups and podcasts and all this. You're a man from South Tip, which I'm getting that correct, am I?
Oh yeah.
So how did the whole stand-up thing enter into your even even to a place where you would take it seriously, or how did that into your mind?
To be honest, when I was 11, I did a stand-up comedy show, I did stand-up as part of a school concert, and I did it. I think I did 35 minutes. I can barely do 15 now. It's terrible, you know. But it was all old jokes, and yeah, as I say, when I was 11, I did stand-up in a school concert, and I just got a bug for it ever after that. So I was in pantomimes, I was in all that. So when I came to Dublin when I was 19, I just figured I'll just blend in and just do the same. But it's different coming from a country background and kind of doing it, you know, in your local parochial hall, and then coming up to a comedy club in Dublin. So obviously I didn't go down too well, and my sense of humour or my style of humour at the time didn't go down too well, and I just thought, well, that's it, so I'm not going to pursue it. But I was always a big comedy fan, and I kept going to comedy, but all the time, it was in the back of my mind. It's just, as I say, it's a different world now. You have like the Battle of the Axe, and you have all these open mics where you're encouraged, if you have any inklings, to do it. And like I went down to Tony. One of the lads said to me, "Look, you should do it. You should go down to Tony, who runs the Battle of the Axe, and just ask him." So that was it. Then I went in, and he has this thing where you win a duck if you do well, and it just went on from there. So. And I love it. I always describe it as the best hobby in the world. But I always tell people I'm first and foremost I'm a big comedy fan who just happens to do comedy. Like that 20 years in between, I went out at least once a week to see comedy, improv. And I used to live here back in the 90s. This was the place to be. Like I've seen Arlo Handel, Darragh O'Brien, Pat McDonald. I've seen all their first gigs. I was telling you earlier on, I have a story that's kind of a claim to fame. A friend of mine that worked in Guinness's doing security with me at the time, in the early 90s, we were going out to the Big Tree in Drumcondra, and he said, "Will you come in and have a chat with my flatmate? He's thinking of doing comedy." And I went in and had a chat with Dylan Moore. Yeah, and I can't remember what the name of God I said to him, but I think it was more negative. I was giving out about the internet, because I got heckled the first time I was here, and I remember taking it to heart at the time. But so Dylan Moore went on to be Dylan Moore, and that friend of mine, Willie Byrne was his name, went on to be the lead singer of Jesus Christ Superstar on the West End, and I went back doing security. So, but anyway, 20 years later, I'm getting around to it. But no, but as I say, I'm a huge comedy fan, and if I'm I love, even if I'm first on or whatever, I'll stay for the rest of the show and watch it and enjoy it, So.
And one of the great things about you as well, obviously you have a lot more years experience on me, but from what I've seen of you is that I have a great respect for you, because me personally, I'm the kind of comic, I'm kind of kill every second type on stage, kind of get that instant laugh, I kind of drag it out a bit more. You're more relaxed. You have that kind of presence about you. I don't know if you recognise it yourself.
To be honest with you, I'm shocked that you would say that, because when I heard your podcast first, and you interview American comedians and all that. That's who I thought I was going to be when I was a teenager. If I did comedy, I thought I was going to be Bill Hicks or Doug Stanhope. I thought that I might be a bit more political, and there was no rush to the punchlines and the whole lot. But then when you start doing it, and you have a taste for the punchline, you end up throwing more jokes in there, and they become. So I would class myself. Some people would often say that I'm a one-liner comedian, when really the jokes are in a kind of dialogue, I think. But I would definitely say that I'm kind of old-fashioned. But in saying that, you probably, I don't know if you've seen me lately, but I'm purposely trying to tell stories, trying to just mellow it out a bit and not be too fast, trying to get to that punchline. And what has helped me a lot doing that is emceeing. Everyone, I think, gets to the stage where they get their 15 minutes together and they're happy with that, and then they think, okay, the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to MC, and then it's like just starting comedy again. It's unreal, just talking to the crowd, and the one piece of advice everyone always gives you, just don't be afraid of the pause. And when you actually embrace that, I always feel that if you establish that you're funny, you come on and you tell a good joke or whatever, you establish to the crowd that you're funny, you then get to, they'll listen, and if you go to pause, and they'll stay listening to you. That's it.
Paul, as well, you have an interesting story. We talked about it before, but you're actually a firefighter now. I want to get into that a bit, because how did you start that? And as well, what are the kind of key differences, I suppose, between dealing in a job like that and doing stand-up? I mean, obviously they have their similarities and differences, but that's why it's such an interesting thing, and I kind of want to, kind of
get behind it if you want.
Yeah, I always had a passion for. I always wanted to join the fire brigade. When I came to Dublin, I got refused. I remember in '92, and I got it then in '97. But I never actually mentioned it. I'm 4 years in comedy now. I've only started to mention it in the last year. I didn't want to be, mentioning that I'm a fireman or whatever. But someone said to me, I got a piece of advice from a senior comic, and he said, "Look, there's so many comics out there that want to make a name for themselves and want to stand out in some way, and you have this unique thing that you can tell the audience you're a fireman." So I started writing material then that would be about being a fireman. So and it's gone down well, so it's great. And I noticed, like, people kind of, that's the thing they remember when they come out and they go, "Oh, you were the guy, you were the fireman," or whatever, and then people will actually say, "You got me on the ambulance." I've got that twice since I've been on stage. Yeah, so as I was saying, the fire brigade, it's great for material, but you can't tell specific stories about cases or whatever. But like, if you're going to have a job where you have a lot of guys and girls in a station for like 15 hours over a night shift, I mean, the stuff that happens and the kind of stuff that you try to be as professional as can be, but there'll always be slip-ups, and that's the kind of stuff that I do tell. And as well as that, it's the kind of job that people, I find, don't talk much about, because there's other jobs out there where people will that they're a TV program or whatever, and everyone kind of knows the job inside out. So what I would go for is kind of tell parts of the job that people wonder about, that the parts you don't see on, say, a television show, or what it's like to, like, say that you're on an ambulance. I'd like to go on about being, you're on an ambulance for 15 hours, and it's not all delivering babies, and it's boring dealing with head to balls, and and there's all that part of it as well, and as well as that, there's loads of subjects, we say, like drink or sex, that you can approach from, say, a fireman's point of view, that we've gone in places where people were doing something that, they shouldn't have been sex-wise, or something, and something happened. I mean, there's all those kind of stories, or especially with drink, the amount of people you get that are really, really drunk, and you have them in the back of the ambulance, and the stuff they say to you and things they do, and that, like, this guy is a barrister come Monday morning or something, but like, as I say, I can't go into details, but you can be vague and you can tell, so it's a great source of material, so.
And when that material is coming to you, do you think it at the time, do you kind of lay it out in your head, right, this is something I can tell, I can structure it this way, or does it hit you out of nowhere when you're walking down the street, like a few months later, you think, Jesus, I can make this into a funny story?
Yeah, I find that 90% of the stuff I would have is, I will think of it just going down, but a lot of it comes out of conversations. Like, if you're having a conversation with someone says something funny, I'm the guy who'll turn around and put that in my phone. Now, whether I use it or not, I'd say on average, probably maybe 1 out of 50 things I put in my phone I would use.
Yeah, no, I'd be the same way. It's just something that kind of passes. You don't even give it a thought at the time, but then it's only a while later where you go back on it and it actually starts to work for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't want this podcast to turn into like every comedian, I want to hear this joke, but fucking Paul, I mean, you're pretty much on YouTube and everything. People can find clips of you and that. Yeah. But fucking Paul is one of the funniest jokes ever. I remember it could have been either at the Halfpenny or one of the spots here in Dublin where we're doing this podcast. Paul is this, and once again, you saying about, kind of one-liners and the story arc, that's what I liked about it. But one of the one-liners you had was about Miley Cyrus, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to be like,
I'm just trying to think that it's, I'm trying to think how that one goes. It was about me turning 40, and this genuinely happened. I dropped my nephew to a nightclub in Clonmel, and this girl walked in front of the car wearing hot pants that were like, when you can see the cheeks of their arse. So, and they were denim, and I was like, how can I describe this? And then I described it as that I said that I had pencil cases in school that had more denim in them. And then the next line it was that like Miley Cyrus at the time was in, and that still is nearly every week in the newspaper. So I live in Tala, and every Saturday and Sunday, the girls that you see wearing these kind of are usually traveller girls going around the square. So I thought, how can I reference this? So that was the joke then was Miley Cyrus. So like put Miley Cyrus in there. The line is Miley Cyrus would have looked at her and thought, put some clothes on. That's not a great line, but it's feeding the next one. That's the way I kind of look at it. So the next one then is, I wonder do traveller girls look at her thinking, just that girl goes to some of the weddings. And then, but that's as far as I go. Someone, Aisling B described that as punching up instead of punching down. I think what she means by that is I'm not having, like, I'm like if a traveller came up to me afterwards and said, you're slagging off travellers, I am, because I'm equality is I'm going to slag everyone, evenly, but it's not in a bad way. Traveller girls do wear skimpy clothes, so that was just, I'm not being putting anyone down by that joke, and I wouldn't anyway, that's not my style, but people do kind of like that little, I think there's a certain part of comedy where you have to step over that line, so.
Yeah, well, no, I think people just recognise that as just like a funny joke type thing. And is it hard for you as well to kind of toe that line of like, I know you've talked about you want to go on and kind of be more of a storyteller. Do you ever kind of see the old habits creeping in where you're like, all right, I can't find structurally I can't find the punchline here and here, so I'll just go with what I know.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to adjust to kind of more the slowed down style of comedy?
It is because everything that I would have watched and learned, or I would have picked up on, led me to think that the less words are the better, But lately I've been reading a lot of books on the importance. We organised a workshop with this comedian. His name is Ron Vaudry, and he's 35 years in the business. But the one thing he emphasised was that you have to be clear that the words you're saying are leading people's imagination in a certain way. So there's certain words that you don't need in there because you're going to cloud the story, or you're going to make the story more detailed. And then you have to make sure that there are certain words in there that make sure that that they're going the direction that you're. So when you think about it, you think, if you listen to yourself saying it, I'm probably not describing this well, but you have to be aware of what the audience is thinking, and that you are leading them to that punchline that you're looking for, and in the least amount of words possible. So that's in one way is I do stick to that, but then I try and tell long stories and maybe throw in. Yeah, I do try, and if I have an opportunity, I won't miss it. Just throw something in there. But
Paul, man, this was cool as fuck. Paul Marsh, of course. You have your own Facebook page and everything. Paul Marsh,
and I'm Paul Marsh Comedian on Twitter. I'm only getting used to Twitter. I only just kind of figuring out how it works. Yeah. But it's just Twitter seems to be the new thing now. Where every page, what they're putting up on Facebook. I used to be Mr. Dead Sound on it, and people didn't know it. Yeah. So I've changed it to Paul Marsh Comedian. But yeah, social media is I'm just getting used to it. But I'm a big Facebook fan. But as I say, Twitter, I'm on there as well. Anyways, Paul Marsh Comedian.
Well, I'd advise any comedy fan to look up and see this man, Paul Marsh. Great to have you on, buddy. All right.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Cheers. Thanks.
See you later, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Kelly! What's up? How we doing, B-Town? What's up? I'm here. I can't believe it. Yeah, my home. Because I'm in some shitty places. Ugh, I was in Atlantic City. You ever go to Atlantic City? It's awful. It's like Vegas with AIDS. I like New York. I love New York City. My favorite. Boston, New York, my favorite. Las Vegas, third favorite. Love that place. Crazy. I hate their stupid slogan. Sucks ass, though. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Go fuck yourself. What happens in Vegas is awesome. You tell everybody you know. I banged 5 chicks on a balcony with Bon Jovi. You should wake your parents up as soon as you get home. Mom, Dad, get the fuck out of bed. And guess what happened in Vegas? Fuck, he's saying shit through the heart. He was naked. I slapped his ass. Fucking love Vegas. What happens in the backwoods of West Virginia should stay in the backwoods of West Virginia. That should be their slogan. I got drunk and fucked my uncle. Oh, well, remember our slogan. We made that for you and your family, Earl.
All right, on the phone with us now. This is another thrill we have. We have Robert Kelly. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, what's happening?
I'm all good, man. I mean, it's great to talk to you. You're one of my favourite stand-ups at the moment. Been a fan of yours since even Tough Crowd, if you can remember. What a great show that was. And then of course you went on to Torgasm with Dane. But what I love about your stand-up is just how genuine it comes off. You're just a naturally funny guy telling these live stories, and
they just flow so well. But how long do you think it took you to kind of learn the craft?
Not to get too unfunny about it, but because I usually, someone asks me a serious question, I go on and on for an hour about the psychology of it, like a jackass. But I think it took. I'm still, dude. I think I'm just someone that can stand up now.
Right.
It's 20-something years in the business. I finally figured out, I have no B plan. There's no other set or other thing I can do. I say what I do. My funny is my funny. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. There's nothing I can do about it,
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you host the You Know What Dude podcast. I'm a big fan of that. I listen most weeks. And that's on riotcast.com. And you recorded above the Comedy Cellar in New York, which I absolutely love. But I remember you were one of the first comedians to actually get this whole podcast thing rolling, because you recorded one from your MySpace page. And I remember listening to that and loving that. What do you kind of enjoy most about hosting the show?
You have your show. It's amazing now that just technology, that it's the worst and best thing in the world, because now every jackass on the planet can have a say, can say something. It gives us the opportunity to sit down and kind of capture moments, at least for me, with comedians that you as fans don't get to see. You guys see us do our stand-up. You guys see us on other people's podcasts or radio shows or TV shows. We're kind of, for the most part, on good behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, trying to do what we have to do. But when you have comics just hanging out with each other, it's vicious. It's brutal. It's psychological warfare. It's vulnerable. It's intimate. So that's what I love about it. I love when a comic reveals something that he's never revealed on stage or never told anybody. And all of a sudden we're all just talking about it. Like I had a girl a couple of weeks ago, a girl comic, told everybody she has a mustache that she kind of bleaches and waxes off. And, it's like this smoking hot comic. Well, you have a mustache? It's like, oh my God.
Right.
It kind of made her hotter to me for some reason.
Wow, yeah. No, that's great, because it actually led to my next question perfectly, because, I have to give you all the credit, because the verbal beating you can give and take, to be fair, to the other comics, it's really just phenomenal. And I love how everything is just a potential insult, as you said. Nothing is off limits. And do you get any kind of feedback, though, from people in general who just don't get it and think you're seriously going after people's, race or ethnicity?
You know what it is we're just honest. We're in a hyper state of sensitivity and, awareness. Everything we look at, everything that happens, we're ripping it apart, taking it down, and putting it back together every second of the day. Why did you say that? Why did she do this? Why did that cop do this? Why did this person say it? What does that mean? That's what we do for a living. So you put, 4 of us in a room or 5 of us in a room, you really can't get away with much. You better be on top of your game, and I get smashed all the time for shit, but it's also, we really care about each other too. I don't just walk up to strangers at an airport, hey, what's up, fat tits? I would never do that. I have empathy for the human race. I care about people. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I get it. Yeah, I mean, just me as a comic myself, I know that you're just constantly examining your friends and just taking them apart. But you are right that there is a limit. You can't do it to the normal stranger. When you're in that mode, you get it. But outside of that, you have to be nice to people.
I like them too much I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, man. If I call you a bald, fat, fucking lesbian, believe it or not, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings.
Right. That's so great, man. Well, I want to get to some other things, because you have the show now, obviously, the new show, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, which was, of course, created by Dennis Leary, another great comic. And
I don't know, but how did you actually get involved originally with the show?
Well, I know Dennis. I've done his, I worked with him on The Job. I did one episode with him on his first show on TV called The Job years ago. And then he went and did Rescue Me for 9 seasons or 8 seasons, blah, blah, blah. But then I started, of course I knew Dennis, and then I hooked up with Jim Serpico, who's writer, director, producer, his partner.
Right.
And we started doing stuff together, me and Jim Serpico. I mean, he produced my special, and we've done a lot of shows. We filmed a bunch of stuff that, we started creating together. And then I met, me and Dennis kind of reconnected through that. And then this was his comeback to FX. And, he had this part for Bam Bam, the drummer. So, supposedly, the guy plays the drums. I went and learned to play the drums. Come to find out, he wrote it for me. I didn't even audition.
Wow.
That would have saved me a lot of trouble, though. It's like you just assumed I was going to learn how to fucking play the drums.
Not a lot of comedians would commit like that. They just show up and be like, oh yeah, where's my lines?
Yeah, what did Jerry Seinfeld say about when he was auditioning for Seinfeld? They knew the actors in the waiting room versus the comedians.
Oh, Bob, I hate to bring this up, but I don't even want to really get into it, but that story with you and Jerry Seinfeld is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, no. What are you going to do? It's the name of my company now, so.
Oh, that's so great, man. That's so great.
Dude, I wish every interview, every radio show, podcast they did had an Irish guy doing it. Their accent's the best.
I know. I mean, it's sexy, Bob. Admit it is.
It's sexy. I will admit that. First of all, my name is Robert Patrick Kelly.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Colin Quinn says I'm not Irish.
Well, he'd know.
But I am Irish.
What would he know about Irish ethnicities, though, to be fair?
Well, he said my great-great-great-grandmother got raped on the Khyber Pass.
Jesus. What are the main differences? Because you obviously have worked on Louis' show now for the last few seasons. And, with Louis and Dennis both being comics, do they kind of give you freedom to play around with the characters? And what are the kind of main differences with working with both of them?
Well, Louis writes, directs, stars in, edits his show.
Yeah.
So, and Leary did the same thing. He wrote it, directed it, edited it, started it. Same thing. The difference is Leary really wants you to come in having some chops on the improv. He wants you to be able to do the lines, but then add your own thing and go off book. And a lot of times he would put up 2 cameras on both actors and just let us go. Louis wrote it, man, and he kind of wants it. Things are said for specific reasons and in a specific tone and in a way, and he kind of wrote it. He writes it for the person in mind. Which is great because it's me, my tone, but you kind of, and he'll think of ideas on the spot, like right there. Why don't we try to do this, say this, or do that? And you can come up with stuff too. I remember Louis called me up and was like, hey, can you cry? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I don't know why. He's like, I'm writing something that I need you to cry. Can you cry? And I'm like, yeah, dude, fucking now you're freaking me out.
And as well, your special, the Live at the Village Underground, I know you said that you wanted to show, what a real stand-up show was like and the atmosphere was like in New York City. Do you think you'll continue doing comedy specials this way?
I always saw specials, and it's a sweeping thing and nobody could talk to the audience. It's just somebody standing up there delivering lines. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
And it's like, my goal, when I said the joke, I wanted you to see the person laugh as I was saying it. To know that it's not a canned joke, it's not an edited laugh, it's not an edited crowd laugh. You're seeing the people laugh or not laugh, whatever it is, as I'm talking. There's people all around me. I didn't want it to feel like it was a television thing, which most specials have this television weird vibe, or it's TV. You know, the difference between a TV visually show and a movie. There's a difference. Yeah, I was trying to get this cinematic vibe, like some old school jazzy, where comedy started, West Village, as we know it, and I think we pulled it off, man. I mean,
that's great, man. Listen, I'll give you out the plugs. Robert Kelly, obviously, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. It's on FX along with Louis. He's on both of those shows. You can get his comedy special live from the Village Underground. It's on robertkellylive.com. His podcast, You Know What Dude, you can get that on riotcast.com. Listen, this was, as I said, a thrill. One of my personal favourite comedians. Thank you, man.
Brother, thanks for having me on, bro. You ever in New York City, come on my show.
I will, absolutely,
if I'm
yeah.
ever out there, we should hook up, and I don't drink, but I'll get some food.
Well, yeah, I'll certainly do that as well. I'm a miserable comedian as well, Robert, don't forget.
Oh, good, man. Then we'll get along just fine.
All right, buddy. Listen, thanks very much for calling in.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter @Comics Gazette and on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Comics Gazette for all the updates and the archives of every show we've done.